Good afternoon and welcome to this Google Digital Training session on all about how to get started with analytics. My name's Christine and I'm one of the trainers here for Google's free skills training program, the Google Digital Garage. I am a marketer by trade. I have been working in marketing since before it was digital. I used to work for a company that thought if they just ignored the internet, it might go away. Now, the kind of marketer they probably were the ones who liked all the colours and all the what image goes with what logo. That's not my bag. For me, it's all about data. It's all about if we do this, what can we prove then happens? And how can we improve this? And how will we know that we have improved or otherwise? And that's all to do with being a data-driven marketeer. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Don't do it on our own. Alongside me today, I have our lovely moderator, Anthea. Now, Anthea is also a really, really experienced Google Digital Garage coach. What's she going to be there? She's in the chat right now. Some of you might have met her. If you haven't, head over to the chat, introduce yourself, and let Anthea know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your business, and a little bit about what you're trying to do today. Because not only will Anthea be chatting with you, responding to any comments, she'll be answering any questions that you have as we go through. She'll drop you some links, she'll add some examples from her own experience. Basically, Anthea is going to be the glue that holds us all together. If you want to chat with Anthea, and I really hope you do, you're going to need to be logged into a YouTube account. If you're not browsing logged in already, pop up to the right hand side there. You can either sign up, log up and log in, and then you'll be able to join in that chat. It'll take a few seconds while I'm just doing the rest of the intros. If you want to know you're talking to Anthea, she has a little blue spanner next to her name, and that's what she is going to be able to. That's how you know that she's the moderator and she's the one in charge. Any trouble viewing the webinar, best thing to do is just try refreshing your page right now. We've got the captions running today, so hopefully they're going to make a little bit of sense, although sometimes they struggle with my northern accent, so do forgive them if that happens. They're on the CC at the bottom. What else do you need to know? All right, so we're going to be pausing throughout the session. We'll take some of those questions from the chat box and we'll take as many as we have time for. Anthea will share ones that she thinks will be good for the whole group to hear. And so you do know, you've probably found us via our website, I guess, anyway, but we're running this Google Digital Garage virtual training as part of our broader offering of courses. So if you want to check out the schedule of upcoming webinar training, see the information on that. It's in the description box below. It'll link you through to our website and you'll be able to see what else we've got going on. So that's all the housekeeping I can think. And what we're going to talk about today is data. All right, so we're going to think about using data to make decisions. So before we can jump right into looking at the data, we really want to think about what we want, what information we need to want to get from the data. And I like to think about this as questions. What questions can we ask that we can answer with data? So we'll think about those questions first. Then we'll look at some of the different tools you can use to get the data. Lots of different data sources available on the internet. It's why I became a digital marketeer, was that there was so much rich information to help us make those data-driven decisions. So we'll take a look at some of the different ways you might want to look at data. And then we're going to look at a tool called Google Analytics. If you have a website, then you probably want to be measuring the traffic. Google Analytics is an amazing tool to use. It's also the case that actually the level of data is fairly, shall we say, advanced with Google Analytics, by which I mean we're going to get you started, but no matter what tool that you use, if you can get your head around the user journeys and things in Google Analytics, then you'll be able to apply that knowledge to pretty much any of the other data tools. So it really is a good one to use. Just a little, I'm hoping today is going to be of use to you. But what I will say is do remember that this is just a getting started session. All right. So you may find, as often happens actually, when we start questioning things, we get some answers, and the answers actually lead to even more questions, which is what happens with data all the time. If that happens for you, don't worry. As I say, we're going to give you an overview and a chance to get started this afternoon. We've clicked over into afternoon without me noticing. However, if you work for a small business, and by small, this could be your side hustle, it could be a micro business. You might just have that business idea at the moment and you're looking to take that forward. So if you work for a small business or for a charity and you're based here in the UK, there's an amazing offer available at the moment to sign up for a free one-to-one mentoring session from Google. As I say, these sessions are completely free and they can help you one-to-one in a range of digital skills. So it might be that you get the idea today and you want to work through this with a guide by your side, and that's what we can help you with. So head over to book a session at g.co/UK mentoring if that's something you think might be of use to you. All right, so let's jump on in. We're going to look at how to get answers from your data by asking the right questions, because the kinds of questions you ask are going to kind of define the answers you're going to get. So you need to make sure that process is robust. So we're going to use this 4-step framework, and we'll use this 4-step framework throughout today's session. We're going to start by thinking, okay, well, what actually do you want to achieve? All right, what's your objective? And the objectives will be probably quite heavily linked to your business objectives. Okay. Then we need to focus in, all right, so if this is my objective, what are the questions I need to ask to see how well I'm doing at meeting that goal, meeting that objective? When you work out, okay, well, I'm going to need this sort of data, it's at that point we'll think, okay, well, where can I get that data from? So we'll look at some different data sources. And then at the end, we'll look at, all right, then, I know what I want to achieve. I'm asking my questions. What now? And as I say, quite often those answers will lead on to more questions, deeper questions, better questions. They might lead on to changes of behavior. I really hope that they're going to lead you to want to try something. Best thing about marketing, especially digital, is that we can think up an idea, test it, try it, test it out, measure it, see what works, see what doesn't. And that means we can, with our data, do more of what works and we can do less of what doesn't. And that's what I want for you today. So let's start with the objectives, all right? Anthea would love to know what your objectives are for your business, what your objectives are for your digital marketing as well. Because there are so many things that you could track, it's really important to focus in on things that you really need to track. What's going to be important to you? One of the issues people tend to have, for instance, we're going to look at Google Analytics later. Same with social media analytics. You open it up, you start to click around, and there's so many different options. There's almost a different language that people see that as, it can be a barrier to doing it. It's a difficult thing to want to do. So they close down the screen and they go and do something that they are more comfortable in doing. All right. So there's lots of things you might want to track. So rather than thinking how you're going to track them right now, I want you to concentrate on your business objectives. All right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to tell more people about your business? Okay. Do you want to sell some more things? Do you want to sell, to deepen and broaden the relationships with maybe your most valuable customers? Do you want to work out, well, which are the valuable people and which are the ones who you do a lot of work and actually you don't get that much return? Think about basic business maths for a lot of what we're going to talk about today. It might be that your objective is to re-engage with people. Find those important people and then find ways that you can, lengthen that relationship you have with them. All right. So, it might be, we kind of come into a bit of a funnel really about there. You want to tell more people about your business, raise awareness of what you're doing, sell some things, make sure you're targeting your time well with your best customers, and then re-engage those people who have already bought, who are right at the bottom of that funnel for you. All right. So how about from your business, what you want to achieve? And now we're going to think about the kinds of questions. To get the right data, you're going to have to frame your questions correctly. So I've already thought about this. All right, so we've got our sales funnel or our business development funnel, our customer journey. There are lots of different ways this is spoken about. But basically, we're going to break that out into the 4 stages of reach, engage, activate, and nurture. So when people don't know about you, you want to reach out and find them. When they know about you, but maybe they're aware of you, but they haven't become customers yet, you're going to want to engage them, get them to know you, get them to trust you, get them to understand what it is you've got to offer. Okay. Then you want to activate them. That's take the sale, book the tour, sign up for your email newsletter, lots of things that you could see that are an activation. And then nurture is about, are they coming back? And there are things you can measure at each of those stages that we'll see. It's not just binary. It's not they made the sale, you made the sale, or you didn't anymore. There are lots of interesting things we can measure about drawing people down. Unless you're selling ice cream on a hot day, it's likely that you're going to have to go through these stages to find those customers. All right. So reach, how well are you reaching out and finding people? All right. So who are your target audience? What are they doing online? How do I get to them? Might be the kinds of areas you're thinking about with that. With engagement, are they finding what they need? What do they spend? What are they interested in? What are they spending time on? What of the things that I post are the things that lead them to spend some time to understand? If I've got 2 videos and they watch one for 4 seconds and the other one for 2 minutes, what's the difference between those things? Something in one of those videos is really engaging. Something in the other video is turning them right off. By knowing that and seeing that difference, you can start to analyze, and that leads to more questions. When it's activation, we're not just thinking about the sale. So yes, are they booking? But are they, what might else they be doing? They might be signing up for a newsletter. They might be taking an action of some kind. Lots of actions that we can measure. And then the nurture, are they going to be coming back? Are they leaving us good reviews? So the kinds of questions that fall under that reach umbrella. So we're going to use this REAN idea of this sales funnel or this information journey quite a lot through today. So reach questions, the kinds of things that you'll be able to say, okay, how well am I reaching people? You know, it might be how people find you online. Which of your marketing activities seems to get you noticed? All right. It could be, flip that on its head, and I know who my target customers are. What would they search for to find a business or a service like mine? How would they go through that information finding journey? Where can I go to reach them? All right. So they're the kinds of questions that, if you're thinking, okay, I want to know how to reach out to people, how well I'm doing at reaching those people, the kinds of questions around how people are finding you, which of the people who find you are in your target audience, okay? The next questions might be your engage questions, all right? So they found me, they're aware of my business. How am I going to get them interested? How am I going to get them learning more? Because you don't go straight from seeing a business to buying their products to being a loyal customer. There are stages to work through. So as I say, that might be around, okay, what are they engaging with? Which of the content I put out is interesting to them? You know, how are you going to measure that? There's lots of different places you could measure that, but start with those questions, okay? The who's, the what's, the why's. What are they engaging with? Who's engaging the most? You know, we can start to really break it down. When you look at digital marketing strategy, which is one of our webinars, we think a lot about that audience. You know, who are the people who are coming here and engaging with us? Then it comes down to the actual activations. And as I say, activations don't just necessarily mean a sale. It might be that you sell things online, or you're selling your ice cream on your hot day, and it's very obvious to tell when you have won. But with activations, the activation might be that if you can get people to pick up the phone and ask you for a quote, or fill in your online form to get a quote, then that's the activation. You can take it from there. And actually, to activate people, your objective is going to be to get them to take that action. All right. So which channels drive the bookings? You might get tons of followers, but actually, are any of them coming through and taking the action? The action could be signing up to your email newsletter to start with. You know, it doesn't just have to be straight to that pound notes on a web store. This works for all different types of business models. The kinds of activate questions as well as who are the actual customers. There again, you might be getting tons of followers, but who are the ones who actually become customers? All right, who are the ones who love what you're doing, engage lots, but what and why and how do they actually go from being casual observers to taking those actions you want to? What drives those sales? What drives those actions? That's getting really deep into the way that you can then focus more time and attention on doing the stuff that actually gets you those sales. But then after that activation, after the sale or after the action is taken, how do we turn those one-off sales into long-term relationships if that's our business model? Whether that's our business model or not, those people who have bought from us, how do we turn them into our advocates? Can we get them to leave a review? Can we get them to tell their friends? If we look after people well with great customer service, that is, for most businesses, a very, very good thing to do. The old business, truism, I guess, that you get much more benefits. It's a lot cheaper and easier and better to serve a customer that you already have and look after them and serve them well. And it's much easier to do that, much more profitable to do that than it is to be always trying to go out and find new customers. All right, so we've got to pause just there. So that's the kind of thinking we're talking about, that framework. I'm just going to check in with Anthea. Oh, I can see we've got loads of people on with us. We've got ASG Fiverr, we've got Leo, Stephen, Pragati. Welcome, everyone. Do get your questions in. I can see we've got no questions that Anthea needs me to answer at the moment, which is okay. I'm used to that with Anthea. She can handle all the questions coming her way anyway. But we will try and take another couple of breaks for any questions that you do have. So we've thought about our business. We've thought about what our objectives are. Hopefully you've started to identify, and do let Anthea know if you have an idea of which area you need to be working at. Quite often people go, when they start this, all right, maybe you've got some sales already. Let's identify where those sales are coming from, and then we can use that to start running those experiments. All right. Or maybe you're at a case where you don't have, you don't know where you're starting from. So you start from that beginning, from that reach. Let's look at where we can go to get the different kinds of information, because actually there comes a practical point that says, well, rather than build something new, let's start with what we've got. All right. So where are you going to get your information? Lots of different places you can get data from. We're going to have a look at some of those sources right now. Because if you think about the sum total of everything your customers are doing online, and as I say, if you haven't yet, do join us for our digital marketing strategy webinar, because that really goes into the types of tools that you might want to use. My approach is always very much try and cherry pick the ones that you think are going to have the best impact for you, then measure them, see which ones work, see which ones don't. Rather than trying, I'm not saying here that you need to use all of these things. All right, so social media, tons of information sources on social media. If you have a business profile on a social media platform, they are likely to have their own data available for you so that you want to use their platform more. That's what they're giving you. In return for you using their platform, they are going to give you insights into your customers on there. So there's tons on social media. There's a tool that will help you to see how well your website is doing in organic search. So if people are searching for a business or a service like yours, what are they using to search for? Actually, you'll then think, okay, are people finding me locally? There's the Google Business Profile. There's various tools there, and we'll take you through some of the different tools. Then you've got your own website. And then there's also paid search, which we measure and track in a slightly different way. And you won't probably, you may well use all of these tools. And the reason why we talk about Google Analytics a lot is actually for a lot of these things with Google Analytics, although it tracks your own website, it will also give you an idea of a feed coming in from if you're running ads. It will give you an idea of how well you're doing in organic search. And it will also give you an idea based on click-throughs from your social accounts of how well you're converting if that's the model you choose to employ. So actually, it's a really good central place to be. But let's hop back and talk about social media. So lots of social media platforms have insights. They might call them data, analytics, insights, whatever they call them. And unfortunately, they all display them a little bit differently. And they do change the way they look. And actually, if you look, so this is taken from a Facebook business page. And here you can see there's an overview. There's all kinds of different areas you can go into. So here's your summary that gives you a little bit of a run chart. What I'd be looking at here is, what are the actions, the times of day, the actions that seem to get you a result? What are you trying to measure? If you want people, I would imagine that, on this one, all of these charts relate to the same time period. So it's something has happened. This total actions on page, well, they all happened on one day that week. What caused that? That's the kind of dipping your head into the data and seeing what's going on. Really handy because, let's face it, not everybody has a website. So depending on what platform you're using, which you'll choose depending on where your customers are, you think, it's worth going out and checking the insights that you already have. It will show you if you take an action, what reaction you get. Show you who's finding you, why they're finding you, what they're doing when they get to you. So really worth checking that out. Okay. Now, I said you can see how well you do in search, in organic search. So this isn't paid ads. This is somebody typing in on Google and what they find. Google Search Console links to your website and it helps you to understand your ranking. All right. So for different tools, for different websites, you're going to see the different search terms that come on in. So you can just see down at the bottom, it actually links the actual queries that led to clicks. You can also see how many impressions each of those queries had. So you might find that 700, your search result had 700 impressions. That means 700 pairs of eyeballs scanned over it and 20 clicks. Okay, so you can see there your click-through rate, your conversion rate. You might decide, okay, well, how can I make that better? You might there find, if you look into Google Search Console, you might find that, actually, there's something that isn't being crawled. There's something that isn't being indexed. So there's lots of stuff going on in there. But looking at those queries that both work for you and also seeing which queries you would think should be working for you and maybe aren't so well. And that can lead you down a whole path of improving your findability in search. If you want to do that, check out our webinar on Get Started with Google Search. That will probably help you out. Anthea will have to dig out the real name for that webinar. I think it might be called Get Your Business Found on Google or something. Okay, so local search. So organic search isn't just about those results being tapped into the Google search engine. There's also the local search. So if you have a Google Business Profile, there are insights in your Google Business Profile. So you can see how many people picked up the phone to call you, because there's a click to call button on your Google search profile that if somebody clicks, then you'll be able to see that they came through to your website. If somebody clicks for directions, you can see roughly where they're coming from. If somebody clicks for directions, they want to know where you are, how local you are, how quick it is to get to them. You can kind of, extrapolate from that the more people clicking on directions might be the increase in footfall to your store. The more people picking up the phone or hitting the click to call, maybe that's about people calling you for quotes. Maybe you've seen an increase in phone calls. Maybe it's because they're finding you in your Google business profile. Lots and lots of things to measure there. And our webinar on finding customers with Google Maps is one that would be great. If you don't know about being found locally, if you don't know how to best use Google search and maps to find yourself or to improve your findability locally, then that will be a great one for you. And then for those of us with a website, we have Google Analytics. Okay, and Google Analytics helps you to understand what's going on. Google Analytics kind of counts every click, but even deeper now again, it's pretty much the world's most popular web analytics tool. It is free to use and it's very well connected. So lots and lots and lots of people use Google Analytics. So pretty much all of your website builders have already built the integration to make it easy for you to set up your Google Analytics account. If you have a website, then Google Analytics is probably going to be something that you want to have attached. If you're very lucky, even if you didn't realize it, you may already have Google Analytics attached. And whoever built your website for you has just never had anybody to ask it about. All right, we're going to take a bit of a closer look at Google Analytics now anyway. Let's just jump on in and see how we are doing with Anthea. Ooh, okay. So question from Leo, how does Google Analytics differ from Tableau and Amplitude? Honestly, Leo, it's not, that's not something, they're not products I'm aware of. There are a lot of analytics products out there that are maybe more complex. What we're going to do is take you through how Google Analytics works for beginners. You might find, and I'd be really interested to know, I've always said, there's not much that you would want to measure on your website that isn't doable via Google Analytics, but I can see that, and I know Anthea's checked out and has found out they look like they're maybe more advanced tools. As I say, today's is a getting started session. And I'm sure, that if you're already using those tools, then you might find that there's some things on Google Analytics that are helpful for you. Google Analytics is brilliant because it is free to use. It is readily accessible and is very well integrated. And free to use. So that's what tends to be why people like it. But obviously there are, like everything we talk about, there are so many tools out there and we couldn't possibly know all of them in depth. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at one of the places you can go to get those answers. All right. So you know what your objective is, or you have an idea what it is you want to achieve. All right. You have thought up some questions that might, help you to get some understanding around how well you're doing at moving towards your objective. And we've looked at some of the data sources. We're going to take a look more in depth about one of the data sources, but I also want you to be thinking this back. So we're going to look at Google Analytics, which is measuring your website. All right. In terms of what you do with the information, bearing in mind that if you're using a social media profile or you're using your local search, you're using your search console, whatever tool it is you're using, the thinking is still the same. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through Google Analytics. And we have a slight complication here in that there are currently 2 versions of Google Analytics running. All right. So when you first open up Google Analytics, it can be quite overwhelming anyway. And depending on when you signed up and how much how recently your website has been updated and your analytics has been linked and all of these things, several factors, there are 2 versions side by side running at the moment. So I've actually got screenshots from the Universal Analytics, but the thinking is the same depending on whether you're working on a UA, which is Universal Analytics, or GA4, Google Analytics 4, which is the new version. We stuck here with the Universal Analytics simply because there are still lots of people who've used Google Analytics or had Google Analytics before who are working on that. If some of the things look a little bit different, it's because you're on the new version, all right? What I would say is if you are still running the old version, Universal Analytics, it's really worth getting a new version. Get yourself switched across. You can run them both side by side, but come next summer, Universal Analytics is going to be allowed to drift off quietly into retirement. So Google Analytics 4 is going to be where it's all at. And Universal Analytics has been around a while, and you might have noticed, but the internet keeps changing. Technology keeps developing. User behavior changes. And what we're doing when we're looking at any kind of analytics is trying to work out what the human behavior is what human behavior is going on. All right. So when Universal Analytics was conceived, pretty much people used a computer when they were looking at the internet. When they were looking at a website, they're probably on their computer. When I first started, I've been working as part of Google's Digital Garage since 2015. At that point, when I first started, very few people had smartphones. And in those 7 years, technology has moved by so quickly. All right. So that's why it's so important that the changes do keep happening. All right. So Google Analytics 4 is designed to really try and get its arms around the fact that people don't just use one device. We might look at something on a laptop, then we might go on an app, then we might look at it on a smartphone or a tablet. So those different user experiences, it's trying to get its arm around and try and see how behavior is different. Do people do different things at different stages? For lots of us, if we still only have one website, it might not feel so important right now, but what Google Analytics 4 is preparing for is whatever comes next. All right. So when you first open it up, no matter what version you're using, you'll be presented with a dashboard, and your dashboard has some kind of high-level information. You might get a real-time view, your active users right now, your real-time users, which might be really interesting if you have lots of users. You might find out that, you're the only user. Quite often I will test whether the link is working by going on my website, looking at the real-time view, and seeing what happens. I might see a map that shows me where in the world people are coming from. I might see an idea of when in the week people come to visit, or a run chart showing my conversions, the events that I've tracked. All right. So lots of different things. And as I say, what does happen quite often is people take one look at all the things they could measure, get a little bit freaked out, and decide not to do it. All right. I don't want that to be the case for you. So Google Analytics account. If you don't have one yet, then you're going to need to set one up. All right. So very, very quickly, you head to google.com, analytics.google.com, or do google.com/analytics. I think both of you will get them there. And you need to choose a name for your account. All right. That's really important if you have several different websites. If you don't, then it'll probably just be the name of your website, the name of your business. All right. Then it's important that you choose an industry category, and that helps when you are benchmarking. So anonymized and aggregated, you can have a look at, for instance, For other businesses in the publishing industry, what's a good bounce rate? Why this is really important is because fast-moving retail customers behave very differently to those who are booking a holiday or those who are searching for an industrial widget. Okay, so if you try to benchmark yourself against huge fast-moving retail companies, you're always going to come off second best. Whereas actually, if you want to be comparing apples with apples, so choosing your benchmarking, your industry to help you benchmark is I find really important. I think it just gives you a much more realistic idea of how well your performance is doing against others. The next thing you're going to need to do is once your account is created, you'll need to track the performance. And no matter which version you're on, you're going to need to take a code from your Google Analytics and you're going to put it into your website, or you're going to have your developer do it, that shows the website that to track this website performance and send all the information to this Google account. It's a way of making sure that the information for the website only belongs to the people who should actually have it. As I say, you may be lucky and find out that whoever built your website for you actually built this for you and you never even realized it was there. So you head over to the admin panel, you look for the tracking code. If you have a UA code, then that's a Universal Analytics code. If it starts with a G, then you've been moved on to the new, or you've got the new version. If you're setting up from scratch from now on, you're going to go straight onto the new version. And most of what I'm talking about the old version is going to go completely over your head. But whichever you have, the G code or the UA code, that code has to go on to your website. If you've used something like Wix or WordPress or Shopify, then that tracking code, you're not the first person who's ever had to add a tracking code to a website. Okay, so that process will be well documented. It will be a well-trodden path. All right. So, for example, here's a website builder. This one has on the site details. It has a place to put the Google Analytics code in. So all you do is you copy it from your Google Analytics, you open up your web builder, and I genuinely, if I'm ever doing this, and you only have to do this once, so it's not something you're going to have to remember how to do. Say you're using WordPress or Wix or GoDaddy, you go to their help pages and ask how to add Google Analytics tracking code. Put that into their help, and somebody will have done it before. They will have written out a process for you. Okay, it might be a plugin. It might be something to do with your theme. It might be something to do with your template. However you've built your website, majority of cases, as I say, you're not the first person who's ever had to deal with this. There will be a guide to take you through it. Okay. Because basically, if you've built it yourself in the code, it needs to be the first thing that loads in the header tag. Okay, so the first thing that loads is right as for every single page of that website that says, right, track this website, track all the clicks. Okay, so then everything after that, it will track for you. Right, so that's all the technical stuff. And sorry if that was a bit long, but some of the screen things I show you are going to be slightly different. And if you don't understand why, then you might get a little bit lost. Hopefully you're not going to get so lost now. So 4 areas of reporting in Google Universal Analytics, the UA code, the old version of it. They are audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversions. Same sort of information, same sort of thing in the newer version, which is another way you can tell at a glance which version you're looking at. It will be audience, acquisition, engagement instead of behavior, and monetization instead of conversions. All right. The areas do similar sorts of things, but there's a slight onus change on the last 2. So instead of just people behavior, it is much more about engagement, not just what they are doing. What are they engaging with? It's just a slight flip in the terminology. And conversions is much more about the full-on monetization. You can track if you do have an online shop, you can do a lot deeper analysis now than you maybe could before. I would suggest that to start with, don't worry too much about conversions and monetization anyway. We're going to spend most of the time thinking about audience, who the people are, acquisition, either it says how do they find me? I like to think of how did I reach out and grab them? How did I acquire them? How did I get them? How did I bring them here? So all the information on that is in the acquisition. So how are they finding you? The behavior or the engagement is what are they doing when they get here? All right. So these areas are on the left-hand side navigation of your home screen. All right. So, and you can probably just see it. It might be a little bit tiny on your screen, but when you're in your analytics home, you'll see home. You'll then see your real time, and down the side, your 4 main reporting areas are your audience, your acquisition, your behavior or your engagement, and then conversions or monetization. Okay. What sits under each of those headings are a bunch of reports, which we're going to take a bit of a look at now. This says data in Google Analytics. This is just how the data presents for you in Google Analytics. And actually, this same layout is very similar to most of the tools. So you either get run charts, graphs that show what's happening over time, or you'll get the data in tables. And then you're going to have in your table, you've got your dimensions. So the what are we measuring? We're measuring whether this traffic is organic search, is direct, is social. And then alongside that, you get the metrics or the numbers. All right. So for the what dimension, what are we measuring? And then the metrics there and how many is it? All right. So your data tables look like that. A couple of other things that are really useful to know at this point in terms of analytics. I mentioned the problem that a lot of people have, that it's actually a whole different language. You can see on this, or you might not be able to see it. It might be really tiny, and I apologize if it is. But here, let's make it a little bit bigger. In acquisition, we've got users, we've got new users. You know, we might find that we have visits and we have visitors. There are lots of similar terms, but with actually quite different numbers underneath. Now, users and new users might be quite self-explanatory, actually, but if they're not, see, you've got this little question mark next to it. That's a little thesaurus. So you click on that and it gives you a little glossary of what that term means. So when you have sessions, when you have engaged sessions, or where you have as I say, visits and visitors. One visitor can make several visits. So it's about, you know, your number of visits should always be more than the number of visitors, because the minimum to be a visitor, the minimum visit they can make is 1. If you find that you've got an average of 5 visits per visitor, well, what does that mean? It means it's quite engaging. People are coming back. So you can start to get some insights from that very kind of basic data. The other thing that's really useful to know is you can change the order of the columns. So you can pick up and move the columns. But what I mean is here, you see that little down arrow? That means we're currently sorting this data table top to bottom on that very first heading. All right. If instead of wanting to know how people found me, so this is an acquisition, how they found me, well, they found me overall, the users found me this way. I might want to see, well, by number of sessions, how did they find me, sort of thing. So you can reorder the data by different columns. This will really come into its own when we want to see, when traffic comes in, what actions are they taking? Not just how many came in, but how much did they spend, or who were the most engaged users. We can go quite deep with just a few simple clicks. So we're going to go back for our REEN framework. We're going to go back to those REEN questions and have a look at just the thinking behind how we might take this and find that information in Google Analytics. So first up, REEN, reach. Okay, how do we reach people? And hopefully from what I've just said, you'll have an idea of where we might start to go. So how are people finding me online? How am I reaching out to those people? And lots of information in around about, how you're being found around those acquisition those acquisition reports. So you're going to go to your left-hand side. You're going to go down the menu list underneath the reports to your acquisition. And then that's where you'll find all kinds of different data about how you acquire people. I always start with the channel report, which is actually, and that same report is actually the report we were looking at just here, by the looks of it. So you can see for people who visited you, how did they find you? And can you see that these are in blue and underlined? If you hover over those, they go underlined, and just like the rest of the internet, if it's in blue, you can click on it and you go down to the next level. So if you've set up your Google Analytics to talk to your Google Search Console, for example, which is a simple setup to do, I know it's simple because I can do it, then when you click under organic search, it won't just tell you that they found you through search, you'll get the same table repeated, but with the search terms that they actually used to find you. All right. So how are they finding you online? Are they coming in through search? If it's direct, that means that they knew your website and came straight to you. You might find they come in through paid social. Paid search. They might come in through socials. Lots of different ways. In this one, organic search is sending you the most traffic, the highest number of visitors. But as I say, later, you might want to look at your conversion rates, for example. And by sorting out, that's going to be another question. But right now, that just traffic-wise, who's finding me online? How are they finding my online? The majority of them are finding me through that organic search. So what can we do with that information? As I said, you click the next level and you can go into those search terms and see, well, which terms are driving organic traffic. If you compare that with your search console, which would show you the number of impressions that found, you might want to up your conversion rate by writing great quality content. You might want to say, we want to be found. These terms that we thought we'd be found for, we're not being found for. Okay, well, how can we improve that and track it and measure it? You might decide, we're doing loads and loads and loads of work on social media, but it's not driving traffic to our website. First up, do we want it to? Or can we quite happily manage those people in social media and measure them over there? But if we want to bring them through to our website, okay, so you might then take that back a stage and say, right, that needs to be a priority. How do we change our social media strategies and tactics, probably more so, to drive traffic to our website? Are we putting the link to our website? Have we made sure that it's obvious and easy to take that action? We might decide that actually, when we looked at it, there was a thing called referral. I didn't know what referral was, so I clicked on it and it took me through to some websites that are sending me traffic. I see that a lot if you're working with a business that's maybe in tourism, and it might find that actually there's a particular notice board that's sending traffic because you've taken out, it's got a little article about you, for example. How can you work to, rather than those things happening by accident, how can you actually say, right, well, referrals seem to work, and when they do come here, they spend a lot, or they spend a lot of time, or they're more engaged. How can I increase the work I'm doing to encourage and make those referrals as easy as possible? So my suggestion is that you won't know until you start to take a look at the data. And don't forget that if you are based in the UK, you're working with a small business or for a charity, then you can come and book a one-to-one and look at these numbers with one of our mentors. So you're not all on your own at it. There's also, if you're outside the UK, check out the Grow with Google, because there's lots of help on the official Google Analytics pages within Google, Grow with Google, etc. There's lots of places that you can go for really good quality official help. Skillshop has video tutorials and things. Okay. So now we want to think about the engagement. All right. So our next thing, okay, they're finding me online, but what are they doing when they get here? All right. As I say, you might answer that question by looking at your social media analytics. They're finding me online. They're engaging with my videos. What are they looking at? But if you want to see what's happening with that on your website, then Google Analytics is the tool we're looking at right now. And this is where we go into either, because it's about what they're doing, we're looking at engagement, we're looking at behavior. The language will be slightly different depending on which of the versions you're using, but the thinking is the same, just as the thinking is the same if you then take it and apply it to your social media platforms, okay? So what are they doing? Are there particular pages that they are particularly engaging with? How long are they spending on a different page? If you've got a video up, how long are they spending watching those videos? You can really start to see in the metrics what people are finding engaging, right? The new version, Google Analytics 4, goes a little bit deeper in on the engagement. It looks at, how long people are active on the page, as well as how many pages they click on, as well as how long they spend there. So there's a difference between sat with the website open. I currently have about 42 tabs open on my screen, whereas being engaged and scrolling, shows a difference. Seeing a certain number of pages might be something you want to track. All right. So check out in Universal Analytics, it's the behavior, then the site content, then the all pages. And what can you do with that? So look and see, you might find there are some pages that aren't getting any views at all. Okay, and what do you do then? You think, well, why aren't they getting views? Is it because they're not linked? Is the content old? Is it not are they getting some who are just leaving straight away? So maybe they are going to that page, but it's of no interest. Are there pages that always seem to be the exit page that people leave on? What's turning them off? Or are there some pages that are really interesting? All this is going to do is, as I say, take you to the next level of questions in a way. So now we see what's happening. We think about, well, why is that happening? And how can we improve it? And how can we keep measuring it? It's a lovely cyclical thing, is marketing. So you get an idea of what's really engaging. And as I say, your socials will help you with this as well. What's great about this is if you do link through to those in the actual activations, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can really start to see it's not just about engagement for engagement's sake, it's engagement that's going to lead to those actions. One thing that lots of people find when they first look at their analytics is that there are some pages or some stages that cause people to leave. That might be, for instance, and I did this analysis with a business quite a few years ago, and we found that they were losing a lot of people at that payment page. And actually what was going on was that it was quite a complex payment page, and you had to sign into an account before you'd be allowed to buy something, and they just wanted to buy something as quick. So they simplified their checkout process. So you could just check out as a guest and ask later if you want to join our email list. And they actually improved their conversions. People do things like, you might look at your website, and when you walk the process for yourself, don't just look at the data. Once you've got the data, then try and walk through the process yourself. Follow the customer journey that people have been taking. Put something in your basket. Another insight we've found quite often is that if delivery charges don't appear until the end, you might get abandoned baskets because of that. Here I thought I was paying £10 for something, but when I get there, there's a £5 delivery charge. Don't want to pay £5 delivery on a £10 item. Maybe they don't ship to the country that you're getting all your visitors from. Lots of things that it might be. So start questioning that. Okay. And that leads nicely into those activations, because activations are all about getting people to take the actions we want them to take, whether that's bookings, whether that's sales, whether that's signing up for something. Okay. Even it might be a charity and it's watch a piece of information. First thing to do is work out with those questions, what do you actually want them to do? And then there are different places you can go for that information. If you've got, you might decide that the actual activation you want is that they view 5 pages. That's a good level of activation, or they sign up for an email list. What we've done with this one is we've gone straight in with the numbers. We want to look and see who's making those bookings. And because these particular people have linked in their basket process to their Google Analytics, they can see that actually, when they've sorted it by the number of people who've converted, 7% conversions are coming from the referral site. And actually, do you remember those Google search who were selling us, those organic search who were sending us lots and lots of traffic? That traffic's coming in, but only about 2% of it's converting. So whereas the overall numbers might look very different, what's important to us here are the conversions. So you really starts to think, and it changes your behavior. So rather than just chasing traffic, we're actually starting to do the business maths and chase those conversions. All right. Here we're talking about registrations, which are translated into table bookings for this particular website. All right. So you might want to say, all right, with that particular one, they can see that there are sites that are sending them referrals that lead to bookings. There again, go deeper into that relationship. If it works for one, how can we make it better for all of them? How can we develop those partnerships? How can we improve what's happening for those who aren't doing so well? We're getting tons of traffic coming in on Google search. Bear in mind, you could go down the link next below and see what search terms are driving traffic if you link your Google Search Console in. It might be that some search terms perform better than others in driving conversions, which could start to talk to you about maybe the intent of the customer coming in. Or it could show that, well, with some things, you're matching their needs better. So it leads into much really interesting questions about improving your business. And finally, there's the nurture, all right? So what happens after the sale? Or after that activation? Do people come back? Do people leave us a review? So this particular one is quite a complex way of looking at it in Google Analytics. What they did is they set up their e-commerce funnel to not stop at the sale. They continued it on and followed that right through. They were asking people to leave them a review, and they were tracking within the Google Analytics how many reviews they got. For example, it might be that you track the returning users. It might be that you sign people up to your email newsletter and track when you send out an email to those, especially if you've segmented out your conversations, so you're speaking to different groups differently. When you send out your email to previous customers, are they coming back? You'll be able to trace the workflow through. There's some really interesting stuff you can do. Might be around the timing of people coming back. All right. So in terms of nurturing, feedback's amazing. Asking people for reviews is the easiest way to start generating reviews. So making sure you're building this idea of nurture into your main processes. All right. How are we going to get them to look after them so well that when we ask them, they give us a positive review? When we ask them, they'll refer us to their friends. When we ask them, they're going to come back, or maybe they come back of their own accord. All right. Think of different ways to encourage reviews. More reviews. We talk a lot about reviews. The social proof is so important. Join us for writing for social media when we think about reviews a lot. All right, then. So I've got a great question from Pragati. Does Google Analytics provide insight into whether your site is user-friendly or not? Google Analytics itself doesn't. The loading speed, the navigation, etc. Places to go for that. Google Search Console has a suite of reports, as well as telling you what search terms. It gives you ideas on your performance. There's also... So Google Search Console is the first tool I'd use. If you go on Grow with Google, it's either called Page Speed Insights or Mobile, Test My Site on mobile. And there's insights available around that. So I would check out Grow with Google because there's interesting stuff on there, but also link into your Google Search Console for that kind of information. There are definitely places that you can go for that, though. All right, brilliant. Thank you for that. Next steps wise, I would love it if you could pop into the chat what you're going to do next. I mean, it probably is going to be lunch, but I mean in terms of from this webinar, what are you going to do? 2 reasons for doing it. One, we love to know from our own point of view where we're hitting home, what helps people. But from your point of view, I want you to hold I want you to get the universe to hold you accountable. If you state an action, it's out loud to Anthea, to the rest of the cohort, to me today, you're much more likely to take part, to make it happen. So formulate and state your next steps. One of your next steps, if you're based in the UK and you work for small business or a charity, might be, as I've said a couple of times, to sign up at g.co/UK mentoring for one of our one-to-one sessions that are completely free. And you'll meet one of our lovely coaches who will work through the steps you need to take with you. Other than that, thank you so much. Thanks for your questions today. It was great to be able to help you, hopefully some of you out a little bit with that. Got to wrap up here. But as I mentioned, if you want more from the Google Digital Garage, head over to our website, which is linked in the description below, where you'll find anything from 5-minute videos that you can watch whilst you're waiting for your kettle to boil, all the way through to full courses, as well as face-to-face events that we're starting to run around the country. Other than that, thank you for joining me. Thanks to Anthea for being amazing and Chor behind the scenes. We all look forward to welcoming you again to another Google Digital Garage training session sometime soon. Have a lovely day.